Hi, my name is Aman Ghawanmeh, and I remember how difficult integration was for my family and I. Immigrants have to adapt very quickly, and instead of processing what they've experienced, they act on survival mode. Today, we have Salman, a father of 5 who came here from the UK, and Riham, a mental health professional who came here from Saudi Arabia in 2001 with her family. They discuss the trials and tribulations of their mental health healing process and how they can do the same for their community. Let's take a look.
My name is Dr. Riham Al-Saadi. I am currently a sessional instructor at the School of Social Work, University of Windsor. I'm also a social worker in practice, so I do held my private practice, Transparency Counseling Services, and I have served primarily, I want to say, immigrant and refugee populations, diverse populations, continue to develop and have a history with that realm, as well as a little bit of the palliative care end of life realm, and academia as we speak as well.
And
All
yourself?
right. And my name's Salman Gul. You can call me Sal. I'm from England in the United Kingdom, and I am currently a truck driver. I used to have my own firm in the United Kingdom doing trucks. I was self-employed as well over there in trucking and logistics. So I decided to stick to the same profession coming to Canada. And also I have quite a link with this particular geographical region of Canada, which is my wife's family, because my wife's originally, she's Franco-Ontarienne, so she's of a French background, and her family are originally from this area, and our 5 children are dual nationals, British and Canadian. So yeah.
Lucky kids.
Oh, thank you.
2 great passports.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about why you decided to settle in Canada? I know, Salman, you just mentioned that your wife was from here, but I'd still like to know a little bit more about you chose not to move elsewhere. So, Riham, why did your family settle here?
So for my side, I used to live in Saudi Arabia. It was a time that I really thought to myself and to my family that, you know what, I do want to grow academically and professionally. I wanted to be a doctor. Actually, first I wanted to be a pediatrician. I don't know what was that about, but I wanted to be. And really the dream wasn't really going to be fulfilled if I were to stay. There was a lot of challenges with maintaining my rights and a lot of scares. So I saw Canada as I immigrated here, but as I call myself, a lifelong refugee. I come from a Palestinian ethnic descent as well. So it has been a story in my family that we've moved from Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and now in Canada. So the reason why is I wanted to grow, I wanted to fulfill myself, and I wasn't yet about to settle.
How old were you when you came here?
Great question. I was actually 14, came right to high school. I would strongly urge not to do it. It was a very difficult time because in addition to settling here in 2001, with everything from learning about the new culture here, coming to high school was a whole other culture that I had to learn about. And I want to say I owe it to my guidance counselor. I still remember her. She's so phenomenal, and she taught me how to even befriend people here because I didn't even know how to say hi. So it was a lot. Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. What about you, Salman?
Well, the move to Canada, what made me move here is that the question? Well, it's a number of things. Like, primarily, it's mostly for family, but the reason why I also think it's Windsor, Ontario is a very good place for me personally, is that I'm a car guy. I like cars, I like engines, I like trucks, I like things like that. And this is the automotive capital of Canada. And we're just near Detroit, and we all know the stories of Detroit with the auto industry. So that's why I really liked Windsor, but that was more fate than anything. But if I would want to choose anywhere to live, it would be Windsor anyway, so I'm lucky. But the primary reason was mostly for family because, in a nutshell, not to ramble on, basically, before my father passed away in 2017, my mother-in-law and father-in-law came to my hometown in England, in Scunthorpe, because they used to visit quite often. And my mother-in-law was sat on one side of my father-in-law, and my father-in-law was sat on the other side of the father-in-law on the couch. And my father, he was in the middle of them, and he was like, look, you know, you've got to take your children to Canada. Maybe they want to live there. Maybe you want to live there because their grandparents and all the family are there. They have a right too, you know, to be involved in the kid's life. And I, at the time, my father was ill at the time, and I says to my dad, I says, you know what, I've got my business here, I'm happy here, we're happy here, the kids are happy here. I mean, I don't really have any reason to go to Canada. But then about approximately 6-7 months later, my father passed away. God bless him. And then after that, that's when my local town, which I grew up in for 33 years, right? All my friends, family, etc. are there, but my heart was never the same again. And so then I really realized, I thought, right, you know, maybe we should go to Canada, because my wife's father, he's not getting any younger. He's strong as an ox, still working, and he's a retiree of General Motors, but he went into business after. So he's quite active and everything, but still we ain't getting any younger, are we? So, but then there was a mental health aspect of it as well, for example. Now, after my father passed away, all his friends around him who were very experienced in life, you know, there were some friends who were like, you know, local English people. Julie, she's a good lass. She said to me, she says, how are you doing, Sal? And I said, you know, I says, I'm all right. We're just getting on with it. You know, and she says, you're all right, yeah? I says, yeah. She says, she and her sister said, wait a while. Wait a few months, 6 months or something. And I was like, I didn't understand. I thought, you know, we just get on with life. But all of a sudden, it overwhelming. I went to see my father's grave in Pakistan, because we're buried in Pakistan. So we're of Pakistani descent. Went there, and then when I came back, I started feeling odd feelings of things like agoraphobia and anxiety, you know, which I was an outdoors person who used to climb mountains and jump into raging rivers, and all of a sudden I've started having these odd symptoms. So I decided to have some cognitive behavioral therapy. I refused to take any medicines, because I felt that after doing some good research, because I'm quite methodical in my ways, in my methods, you know, I like to read and research. I didn't feel it was appropriate for a person like myself, or an individual like myself. I don't speak for anybody else, I'm just speaking for myself. I didn't feel it was appropriate for myself to be taking that kind of medication. So I did CBT. We managed to find out what the underlying problems are, address it, be it money, be it immigration, be it, you know, having 5 kids and financial responsibilities, etc. So put a proactive plan together, address the problem, and, you know, I'm doing normal things again, you know. I'm not the same person as I was before, because I'm always on guard, you know, to try and not panic and stuff.
Of course.
But I'm living a productive life again, you know, in that sense. So that's basically some of the things and the reasons what led us to come to Canada, you know.
Yeah. You've kind of already introduced the topic, Sal. Which is great.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's today's topic is about mental health, and I think it's important for us to address the lack of conversation regarding mental health with immigrants in particular. If I would speak on behalf of myself, I came here when I was a kid. I was in grade 6 or 7. And I have never, at that point in my life, felt such intense sadness as I did when we immigrated here. Being ripped from everything you love, having a family that doesn't have time for you anymore because everybody is fighting their own battles. What a lonely, lonely time. Like you said, Riham, it's friends. How am I supposed to even speak to people and I don't know the language? It was awful. And the reason that I even wanted to make this show in the first place is to talk about that integration that initial introduction into a country is jarring and scary and very traumatic.
Absolutely.
And then from then on out, you think, well, we're already here, right? So everything's supposed to be okay, but it's one battle after another until one day it feels like you woke up and everything has sort of fallen into place.
Yes.
And there are scars that have remained. And like you said, things that need to be addressed, but it feels like, oh, okay, well, I know the language now and I have friends now, or blah, 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 blah. So I want to hear about what I call it the in-between, right? The initial, I'm a newcomer and I'm dealing with all this stuff, and I have integrated and now I'm part of the community and the Canadian society. I want to know about your in-between.
It's an awesome question. Very much touching to my heart. I mean, as you know, as a social worker today, definitely that day that I landed here was not something that I even envisioned that I envisioned I will be somewhere, I just wasn't sure where. I do have history in my family of depression, so I did actually end up in a severe depression situation. Had to have the help myself at 14. So you're asking me about the inception of a newcomer. What terrified me and terrorized me, if I can use that word, is that I actually, in my eyes, I ran away, and this is just my story, of course. I ran away from a situation where I felt very much imprisoned by the Riham that I want, like by all these, walls and parameters and barriers to the Riham that I want to be, only to land here in 2001, a month before a socio-political massive event just changed our universe here, I think, in Canada.
Of course.
And I'm looking at it from what I call like an intersectional perspective, which to just explain that, I'm looking at myself as, the Arab, the Muslim, the woman that I am, the Canadian right now that I am as well, because all these four descriptives are who I am today, but who I struggled with to be in that year. So I felt like I was introduced to, yet another era of self-defense. I had to fight a lot. I had to combat multiple stereotypes and images, and I had to also, it was scary and fearful for me because I'm like, not again, So I felt like I'm kind of going from one situation only to land in yet another dissimilar situation. And that's when I said, Riham, the battle is real, Self-battle, but also battle with sociopolitically and externally, community level. I don't want to just talk about, of course, I'm not here to talk about that. I'm actually talking about our community. The in-between was a room of terror, only though to be dismantled by the beautiful commitment of our Windsor Essex community to actually do something different. But it took a lot of loud voices, I will admit, we had to fight, we had to scream it out almost, to say, this is not me and you're not going to stop me from where I want to be. To say, let's live together. That's what I'm seeing, like to your question about the element of, adjustment or integration here. I'm not gonna lie to you, of course, like not everyone, we're not, we have a lot of harmony, but we also have a lot of barriers all coexisting at the same time. Yeah. And in my social worker lens, what my commitment was that whatever I faced, I don't want someone else to face. So I ended up really committing myself, my apologies, to working with immigrants and refugees like me who actually, chose Canada and Windsor Essex specifically, or Windsor specifically, as home. So what makes it home is what matters to me, And in my perspective, what makes it home and what actually helps us community-wise to address all those challenges, especially related to mental health of immigrants and refugees, is that harmonious commitment, a belief, a perspective on, I believe in the power of diversity, the perspective that diversity is richness. I come from Palestine, you come from Pakistan, you come from an England as well perspective. I come from Saudi Arabia. Look how the mix is right here, you know what I mean? And for me, like, mental health is engraved in that. Enhancing mental health is engraved in the fact that I see richness in your story with your family, your wife, your kids. I see richness in my story with my father, my mother, my sisters, and the rest of my family here. So,
What about you, Salman?
The in between, yes.
Yeah.
Now, being born and raised in the United Kingdom, I speak 4 languages fluently, and from the Indian subcontinent. 3 of them from Indian subcontinent, and one of them, obviously, my first language is English. So coming to Canada, believe it or not, talking in this accent, like my accent is actually modified from the local accent, so I've standardized it to sort of like have everyone understand me. Now I'll give you an example. This is a bit of an in-between. Now it's quite of a misconception that, okay, you speak English, you've come to Canada. So I went into a Rexall the other day, right? My wife says, "Oh, can you go get me my prescription?" I says, "Okay." She says, "Oh, get me some butter as well," right? So I walked in, and there was this lady at the checkout. She says, "Excuse me, can we help you at all?" And I was like, "Yeah. Could you tell me where the butter is, please?" And she says, "Excuse me, I'm sorry." And I says, "Butter?" And then she looked
Can't
at
say
her
that here.
thingy, and then she looked at her colleague, and she says, I was like, "Sorry, what did you say?" And I says, butter, like that. And then she looked at her supervisor, I assume, and she was like, "I'm sorry, I don't know what this guy is saying." And then I just
God,
went.
can you imagine?
Then I went like this, and then I went, "Excuse me, do you have any butter, please?" Right? And she was like, "Oh, there you go. And I was like, "Sorry, I'm come from English, I can't speak Canadian properly." So there is that, right? So that's the funny side of it.
Of course.
However, I came to Canada in December 2019, applied for my permanent residency in February 2020. I filed for it. April, what happened? 2020.
Yes.
Pandemic, a world pandemic hit.
Of course.
And then, so basically, because my wife's Canadian, my children are 5 children are dual nationals, so we thought, okay, we'll put it in, because I could get a work permit, and then while I'm waiting for my permanent residency, which generally could take, it can take anywhere from 6 months to 3 years for some people. It depends on the case. Every case is individual. So we had a world pandemic. And my work permit did not arrive for 15 months. I was in limbo for 15 months, and my wife had to work. So you can imagine, I was from a person who worked 16 hours a day with my own business in the UK to not being able to work. So all of the money that I had, approximately $50,000, just poof, and my wife, had to work as well. And that was it, really, So it was very like it was very, how can I put it, soul sucking in a way.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go back because you can't leave the borders of Canada if you've got an immigration case in progress.
Yeah.
However, I'm a guy who likes to have fun, so I've got a friend who lives a couple of doors away from me who really welcomed me into the area. I believe you guys know him, Mike Evans of the CBC. He's like a brother to me, So we hung out, and and all his friends got together, and they're all locals to that particular area. And some people have been involved in great projects in Windsor, so they really brought me in, with warmth. That. So whilst simultaneously I had the weight of the world on my shoulders, worrying about my children, paying the rent, paying the bills, my immigration, uncertainty of whether they could just turn the switch one day and says, "Right, Sal, off to England you go." But my kids are all settled here and that. But my wife was like, no way. No one's going to take my father away from his kids, But, my wife used to say, "Look, no one's going to take you out of Canada. Canada is the place that welcomes you, so don't think like that, You haven't done anything wrong. You're just a father married to a Canadian and you got kids, You just carry on with your life, so don't worry." However, it just, over the course of 3 years, I'm a permanent resident now. I only just got, on my wedding anniversary 2-3 days ago, I just got permanent residency card. So you can imagine, like, I was worried about the bills and I was worried about my future in Canada. So that's what ended up, it started to trigger elements of mental health issues, mild mental health issues, things like mild depression, anxiety, which would go up and hit the peak as a result of a panic attack. And it made me agoraphobic, you know, like going out into wide open spaces where last winter I could not even leave the house without feeling like agoraphobic, you know. I mean, I do have elements of it even today, but I can control the panic, you know. I just take a couple of deep breaths. I take natural herbal remedies for it. And now I've been traveling to the GTA every other day, working out in Toronto, where buildings and open blue skies would be a trigger, where you feel I'm out in the open. I've got to get somewhere inside where it's safe and warm and cozy, you know. So now I'm okay-ish, you know, 99, 95% okay. So that happened as a result of the massive stress and the massive anxiety that caused, and I don't think I'll be the same again. But everything, as time goes, what I've learned from the experience of mental health, transitioning into Canada, transitioning into a new geographical environment, that everything is a process, and we are not the same as what we were when we were innocent children. Time will always go forward, and things will always change, and the sooner you embrace that change within you, the better you're going to be to accept yourself for who you are. That's what I learned in my personal experience, you know. I don't like how I've turned out because I was very strong and I would travel the world before. Mentally, I was a lot stronger than what I am now. But however, some might argue that, no, you're very strong now because you've overcome something. You've overcome a difficulty and you're back doing normal things again.
Of course.
Like, you know, hanging out and enjoying the outdoors again, you know.
So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the trauma that is experienced by fresh immigrants and fresh refugees. It's unfortunately, a lot of us don't have the privilege to even address what we're feeling in the first long while. Riham, can you talk a little bit about that?
It's a beautiful question, and something that I actually feel is sometimes dismissed. So to my personal story, I'm going to relate a little bit to that. We came here as investing immigrants. My father had a vision. He had a gas station, a convenience store. He called it the family business. So he wanted to literally have every single member of our family extended involved. As you know, that we come from a collectivist background. So to us, the collective is what we care about. All good.
I'm sorry.
The collective is what we care about, actually. It's more, not what we care about as in we dismiss the individual, it's just more prioritized. So unfortunately, that has taken a very big downturn on us on the, I don't know if you recall or you were here, the 2008 gas war, as we called it. So a lot of the gas stations have lost their status places, and my father was one of them. So we ended up coming from high income to zero. So what we wanted to, or we needed to implement, my sisters and I, is that, concept of a survivalist. We need to survive our basic needs, and that's what actually prompted us, or not prompted us, more so has driven us to, give my dad the comfort of, we're gonna make it happen. We had to stand, like my sister was 14, 15. We started just, getting anything and everything that will get us in that perspective and in that realm. I feel like my family story coming to today, we still feel like kind of coming from that or stemming from that perspective, in essence, that as an immigrant, as a refugee, as a newcomer, there's always that survivalist mindset approach because of the fact that it's on the go, it's on the constant that you need to fulfill a basic duty. A basic duty of supporting not only yourself, as I just said, your family as well. The collective is critical. So engraving that in myself, I guess I'm the middle, actually we're three sisters. I'm the middle sister, but I'm the leader of the house, as I call them. Just joke around with them. And I say,
The middle children are
I know,
usually.
we are so fierce and feisty.
Surely,
a little.
yeah.
So I did actually assume the role. God bless my father, but he's retired right now. And after my father, to actually bring my family together. Mind you, all along the way, there was so many stories that inevitably were going to, if I want to say in principle, to break me, shed me apart a little bit. And I had to recollect myself. So there's no time to think about even my mental health or my depression or my stress or my anxiety about what's to come next. Unfortunately, actually resulted in a health complication. I actually had some stroke symptoms at one point because of how much thinking. So I had to, again, pull myself right back to this, right back to the fact that, you know what, Riham, there's no time for this either. So you feel like it's an ongoing, it's been 20 years, 21, 22 years right now, but it feels like it's still an ongoing battle of, you know, being here. Now, what I'm grateful for, what I'm really thankful for is that in the midst of all this, I guess, multiple storms, as I call it, there's an opportunity. There's always an opportunity. There's a space for me to make something happen. It doesn't, though, take my individual effort. It takes a collective effort of those around me as well. Like, I need to be supported for me to move forward. That is the other thing. So I'm actually I feel very fortunate and grateful, but I also feel like I'm contributing enough too. You know what I mean? It's a balance that we need to start thinking about when it comes to immigrants and refugees. Yes, there are the opportunities, but there are also the structural barriers, the obstacles, and there's their contribution. They come with resilience. They come with strengths. They come with, skills. They come with histories and they come with battles. They come with a lot of survivalist mindset themselves because of the fact that they have escaped a particular, usually, like, I don't want to say escaped, I mean, moved away from a particular situation to prosper, you know?
Of course.
And that's how I see it. I see it as a balance between the two in my perspective. So I hope I fulfilled what you're asking me here.
More, of course you have, more than enough. I want to know, Salman, for you, did you feel, since you're kind of a more recent immigrant, I'm wondering if you recall that feeling of intense survivalist, almost like it becomes an instinct to jump into, I need to provide, I need to, the house, I don't have time to grieve or cry or reminisce.
Yep. Yeah, basically, that happened to the T, basically. There's a lot of grieving in terms of, like, in the early days before coming to Canada, just that year with my father, loss of my father, and it just hits you it just hits you out of nowhere. And the doctors say that it's they asked, was there bereavement? And I said, yeah. He says, well, there you go. So that's one thing. So secondly, once I come to Canada, then obviously it just hit me, like it bum rushed me, like COVID happened. Now I couldn't get a job. I had to do all the things for the kids and that. But when you're not working and you're in limbo at the time, being 15 months not allowed to work due to immigration reasons, waiting for my work permit. So, and this is a mechanism for every human can relate to this. If you allow your thoughts to get the better of you, that you will implode. And that's basically how I was happening. All the weight of the world is on one's shoulders or in the mind. And then it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. It leads to things like some people might have nervous breakdown, someone might have a panic attack, someone might have extreme anxiety attacks. So that's the kind of direction it helps. It's not help, but this is the kind of direction that everybody ends up in, and that's the direction I was going in. And then I just basically had a panic attack once when I got my permit. I was looking for a job one day. I was out in the middle of nowhere in the open, and I just had a panic attack, like, oh, I'm in the middle of nowhere and stuff. It just sort of triggered me off as a trigger. But I still had to. The feeling of a panic attack is the most ugliest, helpless feeling. It can happen to the strongest 6 foot tall man. It can happen to, you know, it can happen to a physically weaker person. It doesn't matter, you know, it's the most ugliest feeling ever, right? And it makes you feel vulnerable and horrible. But in the midst of all this, I still had to get up, and I had to stick to my profession and carry on and doing it, and I realized that I had to seek help. And the key point as well for many to relate to is that mental health, it can happen to anybody, and if it does happen to you, know that it's okay. This is a natural mechanism that your body is designed to react to. When there is a stress call or a stress signal, your body reacts in that way. And when it happens, and you don't realize why it's happening, the scary part is you don't know why it's happening, because you're just going about your normal life. But really, the reason why it is, you could be stressed because of the bills. You could be stressed because you might have a $1,000 gas bill all of a sudden, or your electric hydro bills come through, and you're, oh my God, you know, like, you know. So, and then you think, okay, you put that to the side. Now you've gone shopping, for example, gone out the door, or you've gone to work, and then all of a sudden you have a panic attack, you know, something like that, and then you feel you can't go out anymore, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. And then people, when they don't tell anybody about it, that's the key point. You have to tell people, and you have to understand, of course, that it's okay. But you keep moving. So that was my survival instinct sort of mindset, is that I came to Canada, I had to do a specific thing, you know, like I had to stick to my career that I'd had for years there, and I had to keep on going. I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do my career. Excuse me. But I had to be stubborn about it inside, and I had to keep moving, because if I don't do my business, and if I don't do what the talents that I have, then my family won't be able to prosper properly, and I have to do it, you know. And that was my survivalist mindset, to put all the mental health, address it, but keep moving, keep the momentum going, you know, and keep the rhythm going, you know. It's not easy, but these are the challenges, you know. These are the challenges.
I think it's you're just ringing a bell to me, actually, Sal. Is that in order for everyone to have that mindset, is that I think it's our role as well to exemplify that seeking mental health support is something that we need to continue to reinforce. Is you know, like sometimes the stipulations of, is my community gonna know? Is my family gonna know? And we always have to. A lot of my work with my beautiful clients coming from immigrant refugee descent is on that, creating that safety that, you know what, if I don't maintain, I make a joke, I'm like, if I don't maintain my confidentiality with you, I lose my license, just so you know.
Exactly.
And then I actually talk about how I sought mental health support, and I continue to seek mental health support as a social worker. I have to go every now and then to the point to check on my self and make sure that, like you said, be the boss of the thoughts, be the boss of where I am surviving through. The only thing is that I think it's a mutual responsibility from, you know, us as in like professionals, workers, community, or maybe a story of inspiration like yourself and your story to actually exemplify that, you know what, breaking the barrier is important for you to continue to grow and glow, as I always say. So
What I've been really happy to see, I think it's almost like a stereotype that immigrant families don't believe even in the concept of therapy or counseling.
I'd love to comment on that.
I'm sure this is something that's very close to heart.
Oh yes,
for many of us, and I'm happy to see that there's been a lot of progress, even in my own home. There's an understanding of what it looks like for somebody to be in mental distress, and there's an understanding of getting help is no longer shameful.
Exactly.
But I would like to talk about, on a lighter note, some of the things that our families or our parents or our communities have done that kind of they use it as a substitute for getting mental health help. So, for example, Arabs have this big thing with food.
Yes.
So yeah,
I'll talk about that for sure.
isn't that such a thing? They go,
Yes.
I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling good. My mom's like, it's okay. Well, what are we eating today?
Yeah.
Or
If it's grape leaves, then it's a winner.
always, absolutely.
I love that.
Right.
Or they go,
Yeah.
my mom
Yeah.
goes, you just need to go on a walk. Or I'm going to invite your cousins over. Because if you talk to people your own age, then you'll be
Yeah.
fine.
You know,
Yeah.
There's a lot of these things. I want to know what you think about those.
So, okay, so a couple of things. Those things are existent. In my family, I'm going to talk about two main figures in my life, okay? So one of them obviously being my father. My father has exemplified to us, and this is a message that I wish it reaches the widest audience possible. He exemplified to us how important it is to take care of our mental health. The pressure sometimes is like, okay, don't be by yourself, don't sit by yourself, come talk to us. We have that openness. As a family, emotional health, well-being and mental health is actually not a taboo. And that has been led by example from my father, because he supported my mother to get off depression medication just by that. You know, she went through a little bit of therapy, not so much. She was in depression. I actually, unfortunately, have grafted it from her genetically. The other piece is absolutely foods, drinks, and let's be together, let's do social. And sometimes I have to explain back to my family that at times I need the quiet because I need to process my thoughts and emotions. So we talked about that a lot, and I think that's what inspires me to be in social work, as well. That my father and my mother have always not only focused, but also encouraged us to be brave about battling mental health, but not alone, There was another male figure, won't speak too much descriptive of that person, came from a military culture. And he was a strong figure in my life and my journey that I will never, ever, I will always have a component in my life, let me say that. And he told me one big statement, because in my eyes, I was like, oh my God, he's from the military. There's no way he's gonna, even believe in, seeking mental
Therapy.
health. And exactly. And we had that openness. And he said, who told you? He said, I'm always seeking mental health support. And it struck me. I'm like, wait a second, you actually did. And I said, what made you brave enough to do it? That was my question to him. Because in my vision, or my, I guess, assumption, I should say that, oh my God, he's in the military culture, he's going to be more so about suppression of emotion. And he told me a very strong statement that inspires me on the daily, touches my heart a lot too, as you can see. He said, Riham, if I don't worry about my mental health and I don't take care of it, then I'm not human. That's what he told me. He's like, I want to remind you that I am human. And I looked at him and I started it just struck me a lot, and I asked him, what does he mean by that? He said a human is actually, in his descriptive, I'm going to say, is a rounded bulk of emotions and thoughts and experiences and trauma in moving. And he's a person who has immigrated and, had quite a traumatic history in my eyes, but he put it all in that, I guess, strength. That's what he calls it. He said the strength, though, is only possible because I was open to seek help.
Of course.
So that was my biggest inspiration to keep going into what I do and into supporting others. Getting that phone call from a friend or an acquaintance, or even a random phone call to say, Riham, I'm really struggling. What do we do? Let's, be, I'm like, your strongest, I would say your biggest barrier is knocking my door and opening it. And you've done that. So now is the work. That's what I say. Yeah.
Of course. It would be amiss to not mention how important it is and how maybe privileged we are to have a support system, to have families that are loving, that are, it could sometimes feel suffocating. They want to embrace you so much.
At times it is, yes.
Of course.
You're right.
But it'd be amiss not to talk about how it ends up saving your life.
That's right.
The last
Go ahead.
now we're nearing the end of the show, so I want to ask a few questions that I think are really important for you guys to answer, and I think it's important for every immigrant in this town to address. The first question: is there anything that you wish Windsorites or Canadians in general even knew or understood about the newcomer experience or the immigrant experience? Sal, we'll start with you if you'd like.
Yeah, so like basically just I believe that anybody, be it Windsorite, be it a Canadian from the east to the west, is to open your minds, open your hearts, and listen with open ears and see with open eyes. So when you see immigrants of visual description that looks different to what you're used to, just open your eyes and be more welcoming and listen with open ears, hear with an open heart, that kind of thing. Because if you don't do that, racism exists everywhere on the planet, unfortunately. We need to eliminate that. You don't want that to happen. So the problem is that if you don't open your hearts and minds and stuff to look for the positive, the negative energy can drop to such low levels that you end up seeing what happened in London, Ontario in 2021, I believe, where a Pakistani family of Pakistani descent was run over, and so that's the lowest point that it can get to. So to eliminate that, try and spread more love and awareness and that kind of thing. That's what I'd say.
My message is stemming from that, and just very short, that know that they come with a story, know that they come with a background, know that they come with a lot of not only skills but a life history to contribute here. And as we are built on a nation of growth, I think the acknowledgement that we need to put ourselves back into the learner seat and actually also put ourselves not only as the helpers, I don't want to say helpers, I want to say navigators alongside someone who is looking here to build another component of their life history and life story. So allow them to do so. Be alongside. Don't be a leader. Let them lead. Be a respectful, humility-driven, inclusive, diversity-driven, equitable agent. That's what I would say.
Right. I think that's a wonderful place to stop the episode. I really want to thank you for bringing light to one of the most important conversations that are happening in the zeitgeist in general, that are necessary for us as immigrants to have. And if I could pass a message on to anybody who might be listening, who is an immigrant, who is a refugee, it's to address these issues at your own pace, but don't forget them. Because what ends up happening is that years and years pass, and you find that there's resentment and there's pain and is unresolved due to like we talked about, the survivalist mindset that we have at the beginning. So please seek help if you need it. Please talk to your community. Please reach out to people that love you. I think that's all. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for this opportunity. Absolutely.
Yeah. Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Halfway to Home. My name is Aman Ghawanmeh, and this series focuses on the journeys of newcomers here in Canada that are often overlooked. Please check out the rest of the series, and thank you for your time.